Hi, Brian.
Hi, guys.
Hi, welcome.
I got my days right. For whatever reason, I kept thinking it was Tuesday at the last meeting, and I never checked my email at night or anything. So like the next morning, I'm mortified, going, "Oh my God, I feel like an idiot."
Well, I have to apologize for I can't apologize for the snafu with the network disruption because that was out of my control. But we're almost fully back online after 5 weeks.
Oh gosh.
And we're still having glitchy things because it's taking such a long time to reestablish a lot of our backed up data.
Yeah.
So, but we're making better progress this week than we did in the previous 4, which is really important.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw the paper that said that we didn't have to pay ransom. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was in the paper. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. But not paying ransom requires a lot of legwork.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So anyway, yeah, that's all good news. It did kind of hinder all of the department's ability to do anything, frankly, other than what you had access to via email or the cloud. Anyway, Emily, you were sorry. Hi, Emily.
Hi.
Sam, you were saying something?
I was going to say I should have told you months ago, but there's an intention of hosting an OCT meeting at Oregon City in June.
I think you did tell me that. Okay.
I don't remember I did, but I'm glad past me was on top of it because I forgot that I told you. So I'm glad that's been said before. But the hope is to have a tour of some sort with the Oregon Community Trees Board, and they should all be mostly in town that day because the day before is our annual conference at the Forestry Center. So if anyone's interested in attending that, let me know. We have, due to being a Tree City USA, we get discounts.
Right.
What day are they coming again? What's the date?
So it is the Friday, first Friday of June. What day? I think it's the 2nd. June 2nd. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And we have our conference on the 1st. So if anyone's interested in attending the Urban and Community Forestry Conference, there's food, it's hosted, and we'll have some excellent speakers as well. So, but then there's a discount for being Tree City USA.
Okay, good to know.
And share it with all your arborist friends. Because the intention is that we'll have CEUs available. We're applying for those, but it's not just for arborists. It's for anybody that has an interest on urban and community forestry. So.
Okay, so potentially park staff, potentially public works staff as well.
Yeah, parks, planning, tree advocate students, anybody that has an interest.
Okay.
And so let me know if you want some help planning a tour of some sort.
Yeah.
They like all sorts of stuff. It doesn't have to be strictly solely tree focused, but if trees are involved, we'll be happy.
We have a few nice trees around. Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah.
Okay, Sam, that sounds like a really good activity to get involved with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So thanks for letting me know. That's June. Start planning now. All right. Great. Let's see. So we've got everybody here. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It's great to see you. I would like to kick off the meeting just by saying we are very, very happy to have engaged and active volunteers in the city of Oregon City. And the Natural Resources Committee is a huge asset to the City Commission and to staff. And we understand that we're looking for 3 new members, and we're going to be talking briefly about that. Well, we're going to be talking about that during communications and ways to attract attention and hopefully get us back up to fully staffed committee.
I'm going to propose that we modify slightly the description of who should be on the committee, because right now it sounds like you really have to have like an education in arborists and you don't, I don't know that you need an education. I think just life experience would be good as well. I mean,
yeah, well, I think, yeah, right. And, we've got plenty. Our current 4 members are obviously well credentialed and highly qualified and able to fill any role that requires professional background in forestry or urban forestry or natural resources. So, I agree with you totally. I think that there's been a lot of that language is scripted right out of code and policy and resolution. So we can certainly make it more user friendly and attract people who want to be involved.
Right. I think just an average person would read that and go, I'm not qualified to do that. I mean, Dee Dee was telling me she wasn't qualified to be on it. And I'm like, Dee Dee, you were on it when I started.
I was going to say, wasn't she already on it?
Yeah, she's already on the committee. Okay. All right. Yeah. So we are working through our work plan. Since our last meeting, the city commission has met. They had a really good retreat. They're still hammering out some of their priorities and goals, and so they haven't put anything out in the public just yet. It was a really good in kind of a format for staff and the commission and the public to see a more collegial environment than in the city chambers, which tends to be a little more formal, and people tend to act differently in the chambers for some reason, So maybe it's just because it's the chambers, So anyway, that was a big thing that people get to know each other. The one thing that came out of that I should let you know about early now is the climate action plan idea, which they're hoping to discuss thoroughly at the retreat, was kind of scaled down to focus more on tree canopy in this biennium and setting tree canopy goals and deciding what we want to prioritize for urban forestry as a community. So I just wanted to let you know that I wasn't at the retreat and I haven't watched the video. That's what Aquila kind of distilled down for us as well. So that's something to bear in mind as we work through the work plan. I talked to Aquila today about the work plan, and her advice was to try to prioritize the things that you as members really feel like you can enact. And we do have a list of, at least under our first set of responsibilities, we have a lot of stuff. The advice that I got from not just Aquila, but from other people who are working on committees is try to keep it to 3 that are manageable. And those can incorporate some of the other ones that, we talked about. And I remember in the last meeting, Emily had suggested that we include not just biotic elements, but abiotic and other elements. And we were talking about trying to promote Oregon City's natural resources as a point of interest and educational opportunity for the members in the city. But that's the general guideline. So one, is it something that you as members feel that you have control of and which is in your wheelhouse? And staff can help, but it's ultimately going to be up to you guys to try to see these through. And 3, and then B, just try to keep it to 3 goals or 3 activities within that biennial period. So before we get started on that, are there any other kind of just points of view about working through this work plan that you guys feel are important before we actually dive into the substance of it? Anything? Okay. In that case, it sounds like we're going to jump into the substance of it, which is fine by me.
Might as well just do it, yeah.
Let me see. What did I write in my staff report? Will consist of projects and tasks for the Biennium. City Commission goals and priorities for 2023-2025 have not been finalized yet. Some of these activities are ongoing, and that includes being part of any comprehensive plan updates. And we have just adopted a new comprehensive plan in 2022. So that comp plan part of it is really not going to be something we revisit for a long time, maybe another 5 years, I would guess. But then in addition to the comp plan, we have development code, we have policy, which is not code, but it's just sort of guidance for departments and guidance for the commission. And I think policies that are written and endorsed by the NRC, we're going to be discussing some of that tonight with respect to pollinator gardens and the status update that I'm going to give you on where the street tree code is at with the city commission and where they want extra guidance on that. So some of these things really have to do with the resources that we have to provide education to the community. And what can we affect in terms of improving our outreach and website resources? What can we do in terms of printing out brochures and sending those out, like the Emerald Ash borer flyer that we did, and where are our priorities with respect to those media? We also have a new communications manager, Jared, who is still getting up to speed on his position, but he would like to meet with us soon and get to know some of the members of this committee and talk about his role and how he can provide greater facilitation of communications between the NRC and the larger community, not just the city commission, but the larger community as well. And that includes social media platforms that he's an expert at. We are moving to a new website platform in about mid-June, I believe. So in terms of content for the website, I think it'll be a more simpler format, but a more interactive format. The idea is that each page, wherever you go on the city website, there will be an informational widget that floats on each page that will allow you to ask questions and send concerns and questions directly in. You don't have to hunt for that on the website. And then, staff can get back to you and we'll be responding to that widget kind of thing. And so it should be a lot simpler for people to sign up for regular listserv items for like the land use updates, any committee updates, any upcoming meetings and that sort of thing will not be something you have to hunt for and sign up for. It'll be a lot easier to do that on the new website. That's one thing. And Jude today is who you've met. Their system planner is working on that website and trying to make that as user friendly as we can. All right. So I have a Word document open. I'm not going to try to share it this time around because it got really clunky. But what I will do is I'm going to, whatever you guys talk about, I'm going to type in. I'm not going to show it in real time, but I will send it out to the group. And I would recommend that we not try to adopt this tonight, but hammer it out. And I would send a draft, and then we would adopt it at the April meeting. Does that sound smart?
Yeah.
Okay. So cool. All right. So under our first page on our work plan worksheet, what you would call it, we have our responsibility number 1 for the Natural Resources Committee, which is to promote community involvement in natural resources conservation activities. And these are bulleted. I thought it might be easier to just number these instead of bullet them, just for the ease of things. But the first bullet was to support and promote volunteer participation for a public tree inventory for city properties, parks, street trees, school properties, and other public land. And I'll give my staff perspective first, and then you guys can chime in. How's that sound? So this one seems like something we want to keep in light of what the City Commission has been discussing and what you all have been recommending, and in light of the discussions that we've had about city arborist and the traction that we're getting there. So yeah, I would keep this one. Sam had mentioned that an inventory will be a kind of a critical part for documenting canopy losses and claims to FEMA for any damage by pests, emerald ash borer. It was also mentioned that it would be nice to have a program for incentivization of planting trees where people could get discounts on stormwater rates and that sort of thing. And that would feed into our national pollutant permit, our discharge permit that we have. That's something that needs, it definitely needs public works involvement. Okay. And I think for a city our size, I think it'll be a heavy lift. I think it could take many years for us to establish a program like that. I'm not saying it's a great idea. I just think it's going to be within this biennium. I don't know that it's feasible to do that. But obviously, if you guys think it important that we push that particular thing, we would need to engage with Public Works, with the stormwater crew, and the finance department as well to do that. And so there's a mechanism by which it can be done. It would involve, potentially some code, some actual code language to codify something like that. I don't know where in the code we would have to make changes, but most likely it would have to do with the way the city charges rates and that sort of thing. Any more ideas on this one?
I was thinking we could make this into a smaller task if we wanted to do that. We could just, instead of saying like, let's do this whole thing as if it was a small task, we could break that into smaller tasks, perhaps. That way we can accomplish those smaller tasks within the work plan. Would that make sense? So we could say explore, like meet with Public Works on this topic, or send them an email or something.
Yeah, okay.
Open dialogue with Public Works on it.
And maybe ask whoever is most appropriate areas of city code where this would apply, or this would have this interacts, where there's a nexus.
Yeah, okay, applicable departments.
And then that would be like, these would be the smaller tasks that we could then, put check marks on.
Yeah, so open dialogue with Public Works Department and applicable departments to to explore feasibility. I'm not going to get too wordy. Feasibility.
Yeah, you can just like leave it at that, feasibility, and see where they
Of stormwater program incentives. Stormwater program incentives for planting trees on private property or just private?
I don't know where the permit has jurisdiction.
Yeah, right.
So what the permit likes or doesn't like. So I guess maybe the first task would just be to explore where the permit wants these trees, because I know they exist, that you can get credits for planting trees, but I don't know if there's specific locations like at like the stormwater treatment plant. Is that the only place?
Yeah, I think the way it works is they're checking us at the source. Sorry, at the river, and we have to control non-point source pollution as well as point source pollution. So anything that we can do to reduce temperature of water flowing into the storm drainage system, which could involve private property as well as city right of way and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it sounds pretty broad the way you describe it right now, but it might be more specific. So maybe that could be the first task, with just like explore what are the options that the permit provides credits.
Yeah. Okay.
That would be a smaller task before we even go to Public Works, because they may or may not know, but that would be it would be good to educate us on.
Okay.
I know when we had that tour, Emily was there. You were there too, Pete, with John Lewis and people from Public Works, and we went to the storm drain areas.
Oh, I didn't make that one, unfortunately. That was Jude and Aquila.
That was Aquila. That's right. Anyway, that was really excellent, and I think we made some good connections. And I think that they've been reaching out a little bit more. I can't remember his name. He was the guy who does the groundwork for him. And
Eric Hand is our.
He emailed me about, because at one point we had driven by one of the places and they had Western red cedars, young ones that were just dying, and I was saying, the odds are that with climate change that they're not going to be able to survive. And he actually reached out and asked all of us if we had ideas for things that we could plant instead of Western red cedars. And I suggested incense cedars because, they're not native to specifically here, but they're native to the state and not that far away. And they tend to be better in warmer, drier climates. So I think that, but it opened doors, and I think that they're willing to ask us for input and listen to our input. And so I think that was a really valuable thing to have done.
Yeah, it was.
It was a great tour. I learned a lot.
Yeah, it was so informative. I wish there were just like more tours of how the city works. It was really cool to see.
Yeah.
Well, all right. There's an idea. Right in line with the responsibility to promote community involvement in natural resources support more tours or something.
Yeah.
With staff and to learn how things work on the ground and that kind of thing.
I wonder too, because they manage so much, if it would foster an appreciation for the city staff, just seeing the scope of the work that they have to do on a daily basis. It was really. I appreciate city staff already, but I think just seeing how much work they have to do and how limited their resources are in terms of personnel, just kind of even more so.
Yeah, well, that particular one of the sites that John took you to, I think, back behind the hospital in Trillium. There.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's the Trillium Park HOA, homeowners association. and they want to do a project on the land that the HOA owns, which is actually in a tract for water quality in there. And yeah, that is a great.
Talk about how we can get involved with helping with that project, even if we're not boots on the ground so much as giving suggestions and then somebody suggested that it's right behind the hospital and potentially the hospital might have some funding to help, do something, plants with the ivy out. It's an ivy jungle. So
I'm thinking that this is more, this is right in line with the 6th bullet, which is support funding habitat improvement projects and private landowners within and outside of the city. That's right in line with that particular activity,
right,
including planting trees for additional shade. This goal or this activity is kind of focused, well, it's not focused on Clackamas Code, but it includes Clackamas Code. But, that particular watershed is Mule Creek Canyon, which is very important.
Right. And maybe not just support funding, provide input on projects, if maybe also, I think.
Just support projects.
Yeah, support projects, help, come up with ideas for funding. I mean, we can't necessarily go out and get funding for them, but we could certainly.
I guess one thought for the funding. I know, I don't know if HOAs can apply for Metro grants, but if they can, then, okay, so then that would potentially, they could use Metro funds if they were to get that grant. I think they're due June 1st, not necessarily for this year, but if they needed, supplies or, Pete, do you know if funds for Metro, through Metro grants can be used to hire personnel to say remove ivy or?
I went to a pre-application thing that Metro had many years ago with Brian Boyce, and I think Jerry was there too.
Okay.
And they did talk about how you can hire contractors for certain habitat improvement projects.
Oh, okay.
But Metro has a set of contractors that they prefer you use.
Oh, that's very reasonable.
Different level of funding and application vetting.
Okay.
Because there are, up in Foster Creek and various other places around, there are pretty concerted efforts, pretty widespread habitat projects that require contractors do a lot of the work. So
yeah, it's just there's so much to kind of fix in that area. It seems like there would be an additional service needed, and in addition to just planting things. Right.
But back to the original idea, yes, HOAs can apply. The city has to be part of the support and staff administration and match of that as well.
Okay.
There needs to be a city sponsor at some level.
Okay.
So as long as the HOA and the city are coordinating, they can put in for a grant.
Okay.
And nature in the neighborhoods. Sorry?
Would they be coordinating with Public Works?
Yeah. Somebody in the department has to guide the project on the city side and submit the paperwork and grant reimbursement requests.
I know John was really gung-ho about that project, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
The one back behind the hospital, we're hoping to leverage some funding from a different project elsewhere, which is under a court order to do habitat improvement. And we are going to try to collect money from that and just give it to the HOA for the project.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. So that's one way to do it. And then there's Metro. So Nature in the Neighborhoods grants, I think is that what you're thinking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so sport, investments for habits and sport.
I'm sure there's other like grant opportunities. That's just one that I had attended I think it was Anne something who led that meeting, part of the economic development.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
And it was just something that I saw and I was curious about. And so I attended the meeting last year and was kind of interested in hearing like how like how many applicants out of the total number like had a chance at funding, just to kind of like gauge how competitive it was. And it seemed like most of the applicants who applied got that grant. So that was good to hear.
Well, there's the city, there's the city metro enhancement grant, which is city run.
Okay, yeah, sorry, that's the one I'm talking about.
That's the one you're talking about. Yeah, okay, good. That's like in the city's control.
Yes.
And then there's the Metro Nature in the Neighborhoods program, which is regional, which the city can apply for if there's an interest.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. So there's two. That's even better.
Yeah. And they, they would do anything within the urban growth boundary. But the Metro Enhancement Grant has been used regularly by groups like Jerry's group, for example, do habitat projects here and there, smaller things, but just as important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if we're talking about that, yeah.
Thanks for clarifying that, Pete.
Oh, sure. It's still a Metro. The funny thing about it is it's called the Metro Enhancement Grant, but it's funded from the waste transfer site.
Yes.
So a portion of that money comes to the city for having Metro's transfer station in our city limit.
Do you know if that's going to change if they move the station?
It might. I don't know what the long-term plan is.
That would be a bummer.
I think they had talked about relocating, but at the same time, it's so hard to find a good site for a transfer station.
Yeah.
And people find that one extremely convenient.
Yeah.
A lot of people do. It has some negative side effects, like in the summertime when it gets really hot, but it also is. It's been a part of the city for a long time, and it seems to function fairly well. And we work very closely with them on a lot of things. So I don't know what their long-term plan is, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so I kind of tweaked bullet number 8 about that. I said support city partnerships with HOAs and other groups for metro enhancement grants for habitat improvement projects, or something along those lines. Anything else on that? So that's that. Bullet number 2 under responsibility 1 is, I probably wouldn't change that a whole lot because it's right in line with community involvement.
Right.
Sort of an ongoing thing. As the situations and opportunities arise. Sorry. Can I type? There we go. This is what happened last time. I think I was on the wrong screen and it didn't like my keyboard. Okay. Bullet number 3. Support. Go ahead, Nancy.
I think that one's still good, because we helped get that brochure up, and I think there's interest in our getting some brochures about invasive species up, and so I think doing more of that would be very valuable for the citizens and for our committee. Because a lot of people have never heard of our committee. I tell people I'm the chair of this committee. They're like, what is that? Like, lived here for 20 years. I'm like, oh.
Right.
We might want to tweak it a little bit because they were.
Okay, let's think about it then.
Was it Jerry? Somebody was really into naming every creek in the universe, and for everything that didn't have a name, I think it was Jerry was really into naming everything. And I just, I think he ran into a roadblock because we have no control over that. That comes from the state.
Right. It wasn't a very clearly defined process, even at the state level or the federal level. There's some, I mean, I didn't see anything that would stop the Oregon City Commission from naming anything within our city limit. You know what I mean? Or provided it had popular support and a resolution behind it.
Right. But I don't know that that should be the focus of
unless you run afoul of ODOT or somebody like that, and they're like, no,
right.
Or the railroad or God or whoever. But yeah. Back to your original point, though, Jerry and Doug Neely were also very big on providing local place names for natural features.
And putting signs up, like a lot of the signs on the local creeks are because of Doug, and so that's valuable, so that people know what creek they actually are on, and so that was a good thing, the signage stuff. But I don't know that we need to start naming things that, you know, a lot of things have names. They're just local names, you know, like High School Creek. I have no idea what that's actually called. I don't think it's anything on a map, from what I can tell.
Right.
Everybody in Oregon City calls it High School Creek because it goes behind the old high school.
Yeah. I was like, oh, it flows out of the high school. Yeah, and then it crosses over near Abernathy Center and goes to the street. And...
We went there on a tour.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And we went all over there. Tor Creek is the other one that people don't really know about, which is like a tributary of Livesey Creek. Some people call it Tor Creek. Some people just call it Livesey Creek, but it's like farther up. Right. Yeah. Okay, so anything about this you would want to tweak?
It seems to be focused more on naming and doing interpretation and signage and stuff. And I think that's important, but I think the brochures, you know, and maybe have more information on our website would be a better thing to focus on than putting up signs and.
Okay, yeah. On the website. Yeah, we don't really have a lot of information on the city website about natural features that people could be like, well, I'm going to go check this out.
Right. Put some hiking trails, or, you know, even some of those stormwater places we went to, they're going to have a ton of birds at some point. You know, you can get the bird watchers going to some.
Oh, yeah.
And so, you know, and then the swifts are in the fall. They come in every year, and
swift migration areas.
Yeah.
What are they? Yeah.
They were going in the old chimney at the old high school this fall, and I posted on Oregon City Chit Chat, and I walked by one night, and the fire department had pulled their truck up, and they were all sitting on top of it watching the swifts go in. It was kind of like, that's cool. I had more people going down to look at it. It was really neat. People putting up lawn chairs.
Yeah, that's really cool. And plus, we do have a very robust GIS and very skilled GIS staff, and they are able to create layers. They've created quite a few little things that are individual mapping apps. So historic places are obviously one of the biggies that they have, but they've also got apps that work if you're trying to find a particular business area. Something like this would be right up their alley.
Right. Heritage trees. You could have a map of all heritage trees, so somebody could do a heritage tree tour. That was Dee Dee's always wants everybody to think, but I think that's a good idea.
Right. Some people like online stuff. Some people, stuff that's on their phone. Some people don't want that at all. They want a brochure.
Yeah.
Even if it's just like, I don't know how feasible it would be, but if it's just like a cost prohibitive thing to not put up physical signs, like permanent signs, just having like a laminated piece of paper with a QR code, like want to learn more, like scan here kind of thing. I know that doesn't necessarily reach all age demographics, but I think it's becoming more common, and it could it could potentially reach more people. I've been seeing those more and more, kind of like for lawn signs, and like I was walking in my neighborhood the other day and someone had a QR code for Girl Scout cookies.
Okay. Yeah. So the QR code, you scan it on your phone, it takes you to
the Oregon City website with like if there's like a heritage tree, you can, say like this is a heritage tree, and then you just have like a little sticky note sized QR code, like want to learn more, and then you can find out as much as you want about the heritage trees in Oregon City or something. Just to kind of, and then it would cue people into the website as like a resource.
Oh, that's brilliant. Jared Lyman, our communications manager, is going to jump all over that idea.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good ideas to get people more involved and to get people an easy way to learn the history or the natural history of places and things.
I know with like signage, like there's always problems with like graffiti and vandalism. And so QR codes, like something that was laminated and could cost like 50 cents, I feel like people are less likely to mess with. And if they do, it's really cheap to replace.
That's a good point, Emily. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Save. Okay. Good.
The other thing when I look at this is there's just a lot of stuff about heritage trees. There's like multiple bullets with heritage tree stuff, and
you're right.
Maybe we should consolidate and promote the nomination of,
Yeah, we got bullet
adoption
4,
of heritage trees, and
bullet 7, bullet 9 under that are all the same kind of general thing.
And 7 is like, Thimble Creek, which that's up to property owners. And the last I heard, everything was just kind of on hold. So I suppose we should reach out to them, but I don't know that they need their own bullet point at this point.
Well, they have an interested developer now.
Good.
What's the name of them? Starts with a P. Ace Homes or something. Anyway, they are very much looking at doing, following the Thimble Creek concept plan, and looking at all the regulations that were adopted last year for the Thimble Creek. Was it last year? And Christina Robertson Gardner was the senior planner, and they readopted some new regulations that were specific to Thimble Creek, including habitat areas, open space, how developers would dedicate land for open space, and how it ought to be tied to the size of the acreage of each of their subdivision phases and things like that. So there's that's kind of adopted code. This voluntary tree designation that we all worked on is still in the works, and
Rose wanted to talk to the developer. She didn't want to designate him until the developer agreed with that designation. But most of the ones we looked at are right on the edge of the steep hill, and so it would make sense to have those designated as heritage trees because that's not in property that they could really develop very well.
Right. Yeah.
So, and maybe they get some credit for having all those heritage trees and saving the trees, because I know you have to plant trees. So if you've got trees there, you don't have to go and plant more.
Right. Yeah. And the plan that I saw, and the multiple plans that I've seen, have all shown that area as open space.
Yeah.
And because of multiple reasons, but so I think one of the concerns for that particular hillside as it goes down there is that as that area develops, it will become attractive to campers. So they're going to want to figure out who has maintenance responsibility over there. Is it an HOA? Are they going to be trails? Are they going to be informal trails? Are they going to be more, paved or not? My sense is that they would be an informal trail system over there, but it is an area that is part of the trails master plan.
Right.
And the
And a lot of times if you have formal trails, a lot of times if you have formal trails, because you get people, right, good people use, like normal people using it a lot, like the people that live there, that tends to discourage the campers.
right, exactly.
Because, when we started going down into Cozine Creek, like on the backside of Linfield, there were a lot of homeless down there. And then we started going down there all the time, and they just moved someplace else because they don't like being bothered. They just want to be left alone.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So that's going on. Okay. So I'll work on that.
Yeah, can we just consolidate so we have one bullet point about, promoting heritage trees and protecting as many as we can, or something along those lines. And help people if citizens need help with heritage trees, because, Mike and I went out to that. We went out, a bunch of us went out. Did you go out there, Brian? Did you make that trip ever? I mean, a bunch of us did, but Mike and I went out, like, I think twice after that, and measured trees and did all kinds of groundwork for them. So, willing to do that. That was fun.
Yeah, that was
Maybe I can go out in the woods and measure trees is good.
Yeah. And probably. Okay, so I'll put something together for you guys for the next one. We'll consolidate that.
Yeah.
Bullet number 5 is I think this came from Doug Neely.
But Doug and Jerry.
You know what this was about, and it still is about, is trying to find a way under I-205.
Yeah.
And
Jerry's still really gung ho to do that.
ODOT won't let us do that. There's no way. It's just a public safety concern for them. It's like those tunnels that are there are for drainage and not for people.
Right.
So I don't think this has got legs, frankly. There may be a way for us to, put in a significant pedestrian bridge at some point and put that in our transportation system plan. But using those tunnels is a non-starter for ODOT.
Right. And I don't see any way that anything we can do that's going to promote that in any way. So I'm not sure that.
I don't see it's hard enough for Public Works to get traction on that. So I don't know if this is I don't think this belongs anymore, frankly.
Yeah.
But what do you got? What do the rest of the committee think?
Yeah, I support that. I think every time we talk about simplifying this list, it kind of makes me a little bit happier, just because there's so much to do here, right? And I think focus is a good thing for us. So if there's something that we can pretty clearly say doesn't have legs, or we can't as a team make any progress, I agree with Nancy, and you beat that. Maybe that doesn't need to be on this public document.
Yeah. If we ever find a way to do something, then maybe we could put something back on the list. But
yeah,
there's just it's like the impossible dream.
Well, it's not as if the idea of better pedestrian and bicycle connectivity is not enshrined elsewhere in city plans. It's part of the city code.
Right.
Connectivity, and then I think something of this magnitude requires capital money, not just relying on developers to do it, but it requires a partnership between the agencies that really want to see it happen, which would be city and ODOT. But yeah, it's still something that will be pursued, and it's part of the comprehensive plan. So
yeah, I think we should take it.
I have a quick recommendation. Then we don't need to put it on the work plan, but there is the new OCT member who's from ODOT on their climate. They have a new, relatively new department at ODOT to implement some of the previous governor's climate initiative, and which has, tree planting and so on as a component of their work. So maybe the next time they kind of run by there with some sort of development or improvement, we can kind of just, anytime ODOT comes by and says, hey, we're doing stuff in this area, we can be like, oh, by the way,
Yeah.
let's put some trees here. That would be awesome. And then, so we don't need to put anything like that on the work plan, but if it would require some sort of memory or some sort of, instigation to do that sort of thing. I'm sure I don't know if that's something you guys do anyway, but
Well, it's funny. When we mentioned trees to ODOT in the past, they kind of, go, oh, that's nice. But there was a city manager not too long ago, David Frazier, who came into office, and his whole thrust initially was, let's plant large heritage trees at all the gateways to the city. And I don't care what land they're on and who owns it or who has control. That's what we want to do. And we ended up going to ODOT and saying, well, we want to plant heritage trees on, the on-ramps to I-205 and various other things. And they were like, well, do you know that in 6 more years, we're going to be widening the Abernathy Bridge and making all these stormwater improvements as a consequence of it. So we don't want to have to approach Oregon City to ask for removal of your publicly designated heritage trees when we're trying to make stormwater improvements for the Abernathy Bridge widening. So sorry. So we didn't, that's one example. But there's certainly opportunities, I think, to provide input on improvements that ODOT are making when they come through local review.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. So it kind of gets enshrined in.
On-ramps are never a good idea because, first of all, people run off of them, and I don't think trees have a long life on them anyway. But they're always building projects. But there are lots of other places that we could plant heritage trees in Oregon City.
Right.
Well, I'm happy to share this person's email with you, and then you can at least start a relationship.
Yeah.
And then and see where it makes sense to kind of chime in these opportunities, and say, like, by the way, you're going to be doing some work in this area. There's an extra 50-foot strip buffer that you're not developing. Can we add some more improvement?
Yeah.
There, and develop goodwill with the city and better natural resource quality while we're at it. So just trying to, and I think that would be good to develop, and they'd be present most likely at the tour in June, so you can meet them in person.
Oh, that sounds great. Okay, who are they?
I think her name is Paris Edwards.
Paris? Okay.
And I'm happy to share her email sometime soon.
Great.
If not tonight, then tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't know. I would not recommend putting this in the work plan, but just an idea to consider going forward for when ODOT does come out with public input or public feedback. We can kind of ask them to go an extra.
Yeah.
Just adding more to it so that you can get more out of that development work than just whatever their plan is.
Right. And a lot of times their projects do end up either using a private property for staging areas for their projects that are temporary. And one example is John Storm Park. They have a lot of their job trailers and everything parked over there for the Abernathy Bridge project. The city worked out a IGA with them so that the city would be made whole following that project. And it's going to take a while, obviously, to finish that. But once it does, they come back and take care of any. They didn't remove any trees, but I don't think they do anyway. But they're on the hook for anything that they do. And good to know. All right. I think we're good on NRC number 1.
Yeah.
NRC responsibility number 2. Initiate recommendations and review updates to the city's comprehensive plan, codes, and policies as they relate to statewide planning goals that are integral to our mission. So I think where this is going to hit the road right now, the first one we got mentioned here was updating the nuisance plant list and native plant list. And
it's still like it has encouraged the participation as a partner in it's got integrated pest management, but also I'd like to see us just adopt the Clackamas County nuisance plant list. And I was talking to John about that when we were on the team too. So, the idea that they have a list that they continually update and they have the right scientific names, and I know there'd be an issue with developers, but there's got to be some way if you've got your development thing in whenever that changes, like the end of the year or something, then you go with whatever you had before that. And, so it's not like if it changes in the middle of your project, you're not getting messed up with. So.
Is there an equivalent native plant list?
I know Metro has some really good, City of Portland and Metro between them have really good native plant lists.
The Backyard Habitat also has a Willamette Valley native plant list, and the Xerxes Society has a native plant list that are plants that are specific to pollinators in terms of nectar production and longevity of bloom, that are also suited for like more urban conditions. So it's a much smaller list, but they tend to just be more climate adapted plants.
Okay.
It'd be really good to be able to have our website have places where it was links to like nuisance plant lists or
I feel like the resources are there. Like we don't need to create. There's so many horticulture resources in Portland.
So we just have links to some of those
have a link, a link tree or something.
Yeah. So it's more important to have a policy that recognizes that these lists are constantly updating,
right,
than it is to adopt a static list.
Yeah, and that's what we have. The nuisance plant list for Oregon City is static. The scientific names have been changing, and they still have the old names. There's plants that have become nuisance plants that aren't on it. And so my idea was to update it, but then I started realizing that it was just an onerous task, and that Clackamas County has one that they can, they have a person who is in charge of it, and it's continually updated. And so it would make sense if we could coordinate and use that as our nuisance plant list.
Is that through the Soil and Water Conservation District, Nancy? Is that?
I believe so. Sam's nodding, so. It's an excellent list because that's what I went to. And then I started comparing the names, and they were so different that it was going to take me a month or two to even get through the names and figure out which ones were what. And so it makes more sense to have something that there's already somebody continually updating that list than us trying to recreate the wheel continuously.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So what I got is adopt, or whatever language we want to say, adopt the Clackamas County Soil and Water Conservation District Weedwise program, I think it's called, but nuisance plant list, which is updated regularly. And then also somehow finesse this language, but adopt by reference regional plant list in the Metro, Backyard Habitat, Xerxes Society, Willamette Valley native plant lists, which are also regularly updated. I'll have to work on the language here. But
I think the City of Portland and Metro have lists too. So.
City of Portland.
Yeah.
So just to clarify, are we talking about adopting as a like an advisory resource, or are we talking about recommending adoption by the city commission as like a regulatory resource?
The nuisance plant list, we have one now that is a regulatory thing.
Yeah.
But it's not up to date. And
Right.
so to me, it would make sense to have the city adopt the Clackamas County list that is continually updated, with the idea that developers would be grandfathered in, like the end of the year or pick a date, have the city or the planners, Public Works or planning pick a date. And, so if you start development, if you get your development permit before such and such a date, you'd be using whatever year that is. But if it came in late, you'd be in the next year.
Yeah, I think what we'll probably have to do as a committee is make recommendations to modify the original resolution.
Right.
And either readopt a new resolution that gets rid of the old nuisance plant list and the old native plant list and makes reference to these more up-to-date lists. And then within that resolution, we can make reference to what we have definitions for in the code, because when we have a definition for nuisance plants, which makes reference to these more frequently updated lists, because we did a code amendment that kind of made that change, and native plants as well. So we're kind of half the way there, but we haven't actually formally done it through resolution yet.
And Nancy, I 100% agree that utilizing the resources that have been applied by a different city has a ton of value. And this might not be the place for this debate, but my concern is that what happens when Clackamas County makes a decision that we unanimously disagree with, and if we're going to make some kind of recommendation, that we find a way to kind of build in room for Oregon City to override those decisions, or I don't know. I think you guys know what I'm getting at. I just worry about tying anything regulatory towards to another body too tightly, and not leaving us room to work around if there's a decision made that we don't agree with.
Right. But this isn't really a code change. It's more of a resolution to be a partner with the district, and I don't think there's anything like that on the books.
Okay.
And the district I kind of think of as an extension service, like OSU extension service to a certain extent. But and then
And I don't see them putting weird things on that you wouldn't.
Yeah, because they act as a resource more than they're not like a regulatory body. It's not like Clackamas County Board of Commissioners is controlling that. It's just the Soil and Water District. They're very much about just, we're a resource here. We're science-based, we're here to help landowners and local governments and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And as far as I know, Oregon City, at least for most people, unless your neighbor calls and complains about all the invasive species you have in your yard, nothing happens. So,
Unless it's a major infestation.
Yeah.
That they can actually do something about, So this third part of this talks about the IP, sorry.
Yeah, it has
IPM.
Yeah.
Integrated pest management idea. And I would suggest that we kind of keep this one, maybe tweak it a little bit, but what it says is support a coordinated strategy for invasive species management, such as encouraging city participation as a partner, to the Clackamas County Integrated Pest Management Program, and potentially through a partnership with Soil and Water Conservation District, or an overt acknowledgement of a partnership with the Soil and Water Conservation District, you would also benefit from their IPM resources.
Could we potentially add, because at the last CIC meeting on Monday, we were talking, a representative from Xerxes came and presented about Bee City. And one of the main parts of Bee City is to work with Public Works and potentially parks about adopting like an animal-friendly kind of IPM. And so I think maybe that we could just group that, like, we don't get rid of it, but we just kind of like make that one agenda item, and that could potentially fall under like the pollinator conservation part.
I was thinking the same thing, maybe pull the IPM out into its
Yeah, because that's just like part of just kind of like a bigger strategy.
Okay, yeah.
And then we could work with, obviously the soil and conservation group as well, but
Right. Yeah, I meant to bring that up. Sorry, it was on my other sheet.
oh, no worries.
Yeah, support the city's application of the Bee City USA program, and collaboration with the Xerxes Society to promote. What are we promoting? We're promoting protection of, promoting pollinator gardens and invertebrate habitat.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just at the CIC meeting, everyone voted, and there was a unanimous vote to have that as a recommendation to the commission.
And Commissioner Marl is on board with it as well.
Yeah, and it sounds like maybe other commissioners as well, although I don't think they've specifically said as such, but yeah, it sounds positive.
Yeah, I think the mayor's, on board with the idea because of the mayor's monarch pledge, which they're.
Yeah.
Yeah, I brought it up a little bit when we were at the when I did the presentation of what we did last year to the city commission.
Yeah, I saw that meeting. There was so much talk about trees. It was so nice to see. It was like many agenda items that had to do with trees. That was so cool to watch.
It's funny, yeah. That's what I heard too, Emily.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's good. All right. Good. All right. So that's that.
Oh, and I sent you all an email with another example of cheap signage that could potentially be done. And that could be community, like, it doesn't have to be like the city that would make those. I think that would be like potentially a fun, like Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts project kind of thing.
Yeah. I haven't had time to, but I want to talk to Greg Williams, the library director, too, about something like this as well.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that'd be a great project.
They have so many tentacles out to the, not just the Oregon City boundary, but the library district, which goes way beyond the city.
Yeah, that's what he was saying at the meeting. It's
that's what he said, right?
Yeah, there's such a huge area. It's like, I don't know, like just third in the state or something for area, like total area service.
Right. Which is, yeah, that's great. Okay. Find Word document. Go. Okay, second bullet up here is the updating the water resource and wetland inventory.
I don't know that we can do that. I mean, that's not something in our venue that would be, yeah.
Agreed.
It's not, yeah, I mean, it's something that involves city commission support and funding, DLCD support and funding. By Department of Land Conservation Development, so it's basically, if you do that, you're going to go back and update the comprehensive plan to include a new inventory as a Goal 5 resource.
Right.
And that's going to form the basis of a new NROD map. It's going to form the basis of code amendments pertaining to the new inventory.
I mean, I'd love to see it done, but I'm not sure what we can do to do that.
Yeah, I mean, the stopgap measure that we have in the code is that there are, we send notice of land use applications that have water resources on them to the Department of State Lands when there's an application filed. And then the code states that, we understand that existing conditions change, but they don't change so much that a wetland just disappears from a property. The hydrological conditions and soil conditions and things are still there. So anyway, it's incumbent on developers to do the on-site specific survey. If they encounter a stream or wetland, they have to do a delineation. If that delineation indicates a wetland that touches the NROD or is even partially there, the entire vegetative corridor is applied to the new extent of the water resource that's encountered. When that doesn't come into effect is if it's an isolated wetland like was encountered in Kenema, and the reason it wasn't on the original inventory was because the property owner never granted access when it was done in 1999. And so, yeah, there was a wetland there. We didn't know about it. It wasn't mapped. It wasn't adopted. It wasn't regulated. But it was brought into the NROD after the fact by city commission action,
Right.
not through a regular update of the comprehensive plan.
Right.
So
I really think we should just remove this because
it's problematic.
It's beyond our ability to do.
It is.
I want to do it. I can't do it. I can't.
Yeah. And the city is in compliance with Goal 5 and Metro Title 3 and Metro Title 13. And that's just a fact. It may not be the absolute bee's knees for everybody, but that's a fact. So I would agree we should remove this.
Yeah, I support Nancy's idea here. I think, again, where we can simplify this document and be clear about what we're actually doing as a committee, I think are good things to do. I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
Something seeking control and is part of state law. Okay. All right, great, thanks. Any other activity suggestions under responsibility number 2? I know what we use. Well, we got B City USA. Yep. Okay. Yeah.
And the monarch proclamation, the mayor's monarch proclamation, which kind of comes under B City, but
Yeah, my understanding from watching the commission meeting about the mayor's monarch pledge was that the city was going to focus on education, educational outreach primarily. So Facebook posts and the spring resource fair. And I can't remember the third thing. But I think B City would be a good pairing to offer opportunities for habitat restoration, or planting of things, or that IPM. It's a little, and there's a lot of these things are also in the Monarch's pledge, but there's 30, I think, items in the mayor's monarch pledge. I think Oregon City had committed to 3 of them.
You're right. Yeah.
So there's potential to just in looking at B City, because that provides a lot of the knowledge to kind of accomplish more of those action items, those 27 other things. And so I think that, as a pair, they could work really well. But the B City would offer just kind of the resources and the templates kind of. It's like a plug and play more so than the Monarch Pledge, which is just kind of we're doing these things and you can kind of just check a box.
Yeah. And I talked, and I think Emily, we both were talking to John quite a bit about IPM.
Yeah, and he mentioned that be the primary there.
And it saves money because if you're not applying the pesticides are atrociously expensive. And so,
to apply as well as to buy.
yeah, if you cut down on the use of pesticides, you actually have money saving. And if you do, it's usually more effective than just wantonly applying pesticides.
Yeah, I think initially, like the cost benefit analyses that I've looked at that were provided by Xerxes did a 10-year analysis, and it was about 20% of the cost over those 10 years compared to, and of course, this is very regionally dependent. This was done kind of in areas that didn't require a lot of initial like modification of habitat, but kind of in like roadsides and areas that don't see a lot of foot traffic or aren't agricultural areas, that was the return. But there is oftentimes an initial investment that is higher, and so it's definitely more of a long-term plan.
Okay. So promote public awareness of cost savings. And city, well, cost savings, John Lewis is all about cost savings. Yep. Associated with reduced pesticide application and reduced maintenance of maintenance. Yeah, and I think where Parks is concerned, Parks has a lot of has a lot of active recreation areas and not so many passive and open space areas.
Yeah.
There's a lot of HOA owned natural areas in the city as well, and I don't think those, just like that one Trillium Park HOA, they don't have a lot of resources or mechanisms set up to preserve and maintain the habitat that they have. So, yeah, but this is a good start.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. NRC responsibility number 3 is ongoing activity. We don't need to change that. That is receiving notice and comment on land use applications of project within city limits and the urban growth boundary.
Yeah.
And review and comment on requests to vary from the standards of the Natural Resources Overlay District, Geologic Hazard Overlay District, and Willamette River Greenway Overlay District.
Yeah.
Responsibility number 4. Oh, this is an ongoing activity 2. No need to change that one. Responsibility, unless you have any comments on that one, Nancy?
No.
Okay. Responsibility number 5. See what my notes are from the last meeting. I had written, what did I write? Oh, not much. Support funding, rather than the local levy for parts, support funding for habitat improvement projects on publicly owned lands, including city and metro. And
that sounds better than local levies.
Right.
Yeah, I think the discussion was we want to make that language just a little bit more broad.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. And then I just wrote something really brilliant before the meeting, and now I can't find it. Oh, here it is. So rather than invite Kendall Reed, which we should and will, to meetings, strengthen coordination with PRAC and park staff through regular interaction and attendance at PRAC meetings. Now, if I can get PRAC to say the same thing about the NRC, we're golden.
I can bring that up at the next PRAC meeting.
All right, that would be great, because it's in our bylaws. I think it's in our bylaws, but it's not in theirs.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So there's a bit of a disconnect there.
So just so that I am clear about what I'm asking,
Yeah, right.
am I asking like for the bylaws to be amended, or just kind of to have like a casual like invitation of NRC members?
That's a really good
I could point out that our bylaws say that we are supposed to coordinate with them. But their bylaws don't say anything about us, so maybe they want to put something in their bylaws about us,
Okay.
or informally coordinate would be fine too. But
We are totally open to informal coordination, but it's based on following reality.
Yeah.
I don't know, and I'd be happy to assist with that, but I think it's stronger when it comes from members.
Yeah, I will bring up both the informal invitation and also potentially making that like part of the bylaws.
Yeah, and you know, I think ours say that we have to do it once a year, right?
Okay.
Oh, that's right. It says on at least an annual basis.
yeah,
Is that something that has happened in the past? Like NRC invites PrAC, and then does that happen, or?
But rarely, Emily.
Okay.
Most of the time, it's because of people like you that sit on two committees. Doug Neely was the same. Yeah.
Is it like to collaborate on specific issues, or is it just kind of a like this is what we did this year kind of thing, or both?
Both.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, definitely both. Discuss how, it's good for PrAC to know that many of their parks are natural resource overlay areas.
Yes.
And it's good for park staff to know that too. And then it's good for us as a committee to understand what parks is up against when it has to deal with liability and public safety and various other things.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's some shared information there. But yeah, cool.
Before you move on, I just want to ask, or maybe have a quick clarifying discussion for my own brain, and I could have like missed this through the discussion, but with regard to Xerces Society, B City status, both of those things, first of all, I certainly support those initiatives for our city 100%. I know, I think if I'm remembering this right, in our last kind of like work session, we were discussing that as a part of responsibility number one, support community involvement. And I certainly support that it belongs there. And I think in this work session, we've been supporting it or discussing it in responsibility number two, initiate recommendations. So what I'm hoping for myself, and again, maybe we've said this and I just need to get it clear in my head, is are we supporting this kind of on two fronts? And that's the intention of the committee. And if that's the case, is there any appetite for the city's comprehensive plan to discuss stuff like that?
Right. So I think what we're establishing through B City USA is a program, and it's going to entail an application, and a department at the city is going to have to commit to changing potentially policies, or at least embracing or adding or modifying policies that they have to assure that the recommendations that come out of the B City USA program participation are being met. And I think there are ways that we do it, but it's not like publicly out there. It's sort of like buried in the stormwater maintenance design manual and things like that. So yeah, it does inform policy, and it probably belongs there. But yeah, it also is part of public outreach and promoting community involvement as well. Yeah, so it definitely does both things, I think. So I guess the question is, where does the committee feel it best belongs under?
I mean, as much as I have advocated for simplifying this list, in this case, I think maybe it belongs in both.
Okay.
Because it is, as far as I'm concerned, so important to promote community involvement, as well as hopefully inform policy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right to say because, and from my understanding, these things don't get off the ground without community involvement. And so it's a very necessary part. An IPM ideally, and everything else that comes along with it. It's not just like a document that's sitting on a shelf. It's something that is like a living, breathing thing, and it needs wings, and the community is kind of those wings.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Participation. So I'm going to put it in there. Probably, where should I put it? I'll put it in there for sure, and I'll bring it back as a draft. Yeah. Without making the list longer.
Well, we cut a couple of things off, so.
Yeah, I think we did pretty good. I think we did really good.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, I got some clear direction, which is great. All right. So Nancy, do you want to move along or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Want me to call the meeting to order? Although we already have the meeting.
I think we're good.
I think so too.
We are officially in the regular meeting now. Not that it makes that much difference, but public comment. I don't see anybody signed up to talk.
Yeah. Adoption of the agenda. I want to add the little blip I sent you, Pete, about the requirements to be on the NRC. I'd like to tweak that. I didn't feel comfortable doing it on my own. I think I could have, but I thought, no, this should be the whole committee should make these change. So
I agree.
And then I've got the business card of the guy who will actually change it for us on our website and tweak it and give it to me. But after the city commission, after I did that presentation, I was complaining about the fact that we needed.
Who was it?
I can't remember his name.
Was it Jared?
It may have been Jared. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he came up and handed me his card and said, "Here, let me know what you want on there." I went, okay.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, for sure. Well, we can definitely tackle that. Anybody else have any changes to the agenda? Okay.
No.
So, do you want to talk about that one after the pollinated gardens thing?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So, the pollinator gardens discussion came out of the city commission's deliberations about adopting the minor street tree code amendment, which you all worked on, which is currently on hold until we can get direction on a couple of things, actually 3 things. But the commissioners had some concerns about not the language that was proposed necessarily, that's still in the works, but there are larger items related to street tree codes and the code that we have that they wanted to look at. But for this particular item, they would like NRC direction about pollinator gardens in planter strips, which is right in line with what we've been discussing about. And this is not so much something where we need to amend the code. This is more coming up with a policy about pollinator gardens, that gives direction and educates the public about what they are and where to get information about them. It's the feedback that we've gotten from public works staff is that they're totally fine with pollinator gardens. They're even fine with them instead of street trees in these narrower planter strips. There are some practical considerations, one of which has to do with sight lines at street intersections. It's already regulated, where you're not allowed to have something growing over 3.5 feet because you might block someone's view down the other intersecting street. So that's in our code, but it's also in a lot of the public works traffic requirements. You know, when a development comes in and turns in a transportation analysis, they have to do a sightline analysis as well, and that usually refers to the federal standards, which is the American Association of State and Highway Transportation Officials, or AASHTO. And they have a regulation about this, which most engineers just kind of glom onto and say that's the standard. So anyway, I don't want to get into I don't want to have to write code that says pollinator gardens must comply with AASHTO standard, blah, 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 because we already have stuff on the books about that. I have heard concerns about, and I personally don't give this a lot of credence myself, because I think people have plenty of places to park on public rights of way. But I've heard people say, well, I don't want to have to get out of my car and step into a lavender plant or something which has bees on it or something, you know, and get stung. And I'm like, well, gee whiz, you know, there's only so much
10 feet away.
that the city is going to worry about regulating, and that's frankly not that's a small fish, and I don't think we should be regulating something like that. But I'd like to hear your points of view about it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just like a couple of initial thoughts. I think it would be really easy to accommodate that 3.5 feet and less height requirement with pollinator plants. You know, California poppy, Pacific aster, those are the two highest bang for your buck in terms of nectar production and bloom time. And so both of those are under 3 feet, like, you know, by a significant 3.5 feet, certainly below that. And so I think that if the city were to advise on particular plants, you know, certainly that height restriction would be pretty easy to work around. Stuff like milkweed gets taller, so that one, you know, maybe not ideal for a street tree replacement. And yeah, I think that would be pretty easy to work around. And then in terms of, like, you know, not parking in areas like where there's plants. I mean, I think Portland, like, so many people have gardens in their you know, their planter strips, and like, it's fine. There's way more traffic in Portland, and people just, you know, they either step on the plants or they don't park there. And I think that would
get off by the curb, and you know.
Yeah, exactly. Or just
I've got to
climb over your seat,
yeah,
get out the other side or something.
yeah, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
So if I was to offer any guidance on the sight line, I'd probably say something to the effect of, like, shrubs, pollinator shrubs, or shrubs taller than 3.5 feet should not be planted within, I would say, I don't know, 15 feet of an intersecting street right of way or something like that.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
As a general policy, it's not like a rule, and
Yeah.
it becomes a problem is enforced through code enforcement and trimming. So, you know, that's a standard way of dealing with things like that.
And then for people who aren't close to an intersection, there's a lot of very like small trees like Garryana elliptica, the silk tassel, so many different kinds of manzanita. So people aren't in close to an intersection, that those plants would do fantastic in a very exposed 3-foot planter strip. And they could be planted in conjunction with perennials like the poppy and the aster to provide nectar sources year round, because a lot of the manzanitas bloom earlier than either the poppy or the aster would even, be showing any green foliage.
Okay, year-round blooming.
And I think there's probably opportunity to just kind of come up with a really simplified list of 5 or 6 species that could be planted, depending on how close somebody is to an intersection. Like if you're in an area that's 15 feet within an intersection, you get a list of 5 things that provide nectar, say for 8 months out of the year, because that's about, I think, as good as we could do. In an area with just perennials that are 3 feet and under.
There are native plants that, I've got one, it's a limnanthes, and it blooms really early in the spring, and it's about 3 or 4 inches high, and it's covered with bees in the spring, and not just honeybees. I get more native bees on that when it's blooming. And I don't know where they go when it's not blooming, because it only blooms once, but that thing is just incredibly important because it is a relatively early bloomer too. So
Pneumanthe?
it's limnanthes.
Limnanthe.
It's called butter and eggs because it literally looks like, or fried eggs. They're white flowers with a big yellow center, so it looks like a fried egg when you look at it. They're really pretty, and it's just, so I don't know that the city should be giving lists of species, because there's a lot. You could put camas lily in if you had the right conditions, and it would grow great and bloom, and they don't get that high. And so I think it'd be better just to have, within so many feet of the intersection, make sure you're planting things that are short enough to not interfere with the ability to see cars,
Yeah.
Because frankly, there's cars parked there anyway, you can't see. It doesn't matter what the plants
Yeah,
are.
cars themselves is creating more of an issue, right? Yeah.
I guess one thought that I had with providing a list is that I think a lot of people don't know about our native plant resources. And so if they see Pollinator Garden, they might just go to Home Depot and buy a bunch of commercially produced neonicotinoid sprayed hydrangeas, or something that really isn't suited to either a 3-foot planter strip, or that's really not providing nectar or wildlife resources. And so the list wouldn't be you have to plant these, but if it's going to take the place of a street tree, then it has to offer some kind of ecological value. And depending on which plants are planted, there could be a huge range in what kind of ecological value that area is providing.
Does the NRC Society have on their website? I'm sure there are places that have lists of what plants would be appropriate for one of those.
Yeah, I don't know if they have 3.5 feet and less, but one of the companies that they work with is Northwest Meadowscapes, and they have a really thorough list of the species that tend to do really well in exposed areas, which I think most, those planter strips are exposed. So that would be a good resource.
Yeah, but it'd be good to find so that we could give, the city could put on their website, what the policy was, and then, a link or two to potential places where they could get those plants.
Yeah, right. We would have a website that would link to the Xerces Society and have some attachments on it.
I can hunt down all of those pages and send them out to
a lot of times they'll give you the name of the plant, and then they'll tell you the height. The height of plants. So make sure you pick plants, within 15 feet of curb, whatever the distance is that you're picking plants that will be below this height.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And sometimes there's a really great search engine for Pacific Northwest plants, Plant Lost, and that has a height restriction that you can put in, and you can also check boxes for beneficial to wildlife. I think they even have a box specifically for hummingbirds. It's really specific. And then it links to a nursery that has those plants in stock.
That's even cooler.
And you can order it all from one place, which is like, yeah, it makes it really easy.
Neat. That's great. Yeah.
Right.
Find those resources. That would be great.
Yeah, I'll put together a list and then send them to everyone.
Excellent.
Do you guys think, and this is a question, not a suggestion, so please take it that way, there's any value in dividing up these recommendations between like residential and business applications, or even like further down, like single family residence versus everything else or something like that? Like, it just seems like those two applications are so different in what might make sense to have out by the curb in my mind, but also this isn't my area, so that's why I'm asking it as a question.
No, you're right. I think on commercial properties, oftentimes they have a landscape crew coming in, and you don't have a homeowner there keeping an eye on the right of way. Multifamily projects are kind of the same. So that's a really important point, Brian. I think it's about
Most of those commercial are going to have trees out there. They're
Yeah.
probably gonna have trees and grass rather than, because they're going to have the wider planter strips that they can put trees in. So we're mostly looking at places where you can't put trees or they don't grow very well because they're too narrow.
Yeah, I think that kind of ties back to the recommendations that we would provide for what you don't do, which is over mow, use sprays and herbicides, weed whackers, that kind of thing. So we can provide some direction in that regard. Yeah.
I know that the behind Linfield, there's natural existing huge camas patches.
Mm.
And they grow in a meadow, so they're in with a lot of grasses, and they get about 1.5 feet, maybe 2 feet high, but not much more than that. But then after they go to seed, so usually sometime in July, it starts drying out down there, and there's homeowners along the other side that are kind of concerned about fire. And there are homeless people that wander through there once in a while. So they go down and mow. The college goes down and mow usually late July, early August, which is okay because the plants have gone to seed by then. And actually, there's a guy from the watershed that goes out and collects all the seeds. He works with our public works people, and when he gets done collecting seed, then he lets them know and they go down and mow. But so they're seeding everywhere now. They're giving it to the Grand Ronde tribe, and they're going up and down the creek with the seeds. And
So if they are going to mow, best time to mow is after the
flowers have gone to seed.
After they're seeded. Mm-hmm.
And a lot of places in the Midwest, when Lady Bird Johnson was the first lady, and she went on the Beautify America, and she loved wildflowers, and so she promoted that, like on freeways in between the lanes, that they would plant freeways or plant these wildflowers, and then they wouldn't mow until after they'd gone to seed, and then they'd mow down, and so it'd be nice and tidy for part of the year. But then the flowers would come up every spring, and it was gorgeous. There's still places like that.
Okay, yeah, right. Yeah, it's that fire season at the end of the summer, right?
So people get concerned about fire season in late summer. Once the flowers have gone to seed, you can mow them.
Got it.
Depending on what you plant. Asters don't particularly like to be mowed, and they're actually blooming about then. So
yeah, it would be easier to have maintenance protocol if it were like a single species, but I feel like with mixed, it becomes a little bit more challenging.
Yeah, totally. Right. Which kind of means, the nice thing about having promoting them in a narrower planter strip is that's a very constrained area and is very visible.
Right.
Yeah, and it's really visible like to bees also. If there's just one huge block of orange, they are much more like they go to those spots more readily because they can see them from a farther distance, as opposed to like a collage of different colors. And so having those big blocks, well, they're not big, but something in a 3-foot planter strip is still relatively small, but big for a bee. And so I don't really think there's like a disadvantage to having kind of like just one species planted, because it will increase visibility for things that are flying.
Yeah, they want to be able to see it to get to it.
Yeah, and that'll make it simpler, like for people to manage it because it's just one species.
Cool. All right. Well, I have a lot of good notes here from you guys on this. I'm going to write it up. And I think we're going back to the commission. I know we're going back April 4th, I believe. And they wanted to have our direction on the pollinators by then.
Do you want to write something up and send it out and we can all give our thumbs up or thumbs down?
Yeah. Okay.
I guess I know that it was mentioned, I think Denise brought it up, for increasing the fee in lieu of. Is that something that we were going to?
That's something else that they're discussing, yeah.
Okay.
I'm glad you brought it up because it wasn't on the agenda, but I was going to mention it. We can totally talk about that. I haven't done a whole bunch of research yet. What I've done so far is look at what other municipalities charge for fee in lieu.
Mm-hmm.
Ours is currently $391, which is, as far as I can tell, that's kind of in the ballpark for a medium-sized tree. Other cities charge around $200 to $600. I think the ones that are higher tend to build in the cost of maintenance. So after you plant the tree, they're thinking, well, what does it cost to keep it pruned for a couple of years and watered? So they kind of factor that into the fee in lieu as well. And I'll just ask you guys, maybe y'all, some of you know what the average cost of a tree planting is. Ours was based off of landscape bids back about 12 years ago, and then it goes up 3% every year for construction price index.
I spent $30 for Friends of Trees to plant a tree on my property.
Right, which is a little different because the city's subsidizing that, and then they're getting grants, and they're getting stuff wholesale as well. So, but I did ask them as well, and what they, even with the subsidy and the volunteer time and the city assistance, what they figure it worked out to. So I'm just coming up with some numbers for the city commission to consider, and whether $391 is good or too much or not enough.
I think you'd be well within.
Oh, Sam, I can't hear you. Can anyone else hear Sam?
No.
Sorry.
Oh, there we go.
I moved it. I think you'd be in a good average. I think it can depend a lot on caliper size.
Yeah.
If you have a small size plant, you're going to have a lower cost, which is good because usually smaller size plants will have a better establishment rate.
Yeah.
But if you want a nice, 3-inch caliper tree put in, that's going to run you higher, and that could run up to $500 or $600 just to get the plant itself. So it's definitely going to be a range. It can vary by species, and it can also vary in price based on not price necessarily, but availability. So if you have a particular species in mind that you want, it might not necessarily be available when you want to plant. So yeah, I think $391 would be a reasonable average, but I think it wouldn't be too surprising to see a number of options much higher than that.
Yeah.
One thought that I had is like, so that number is based on the cost to plant a new tree that will grow much larger. And so to me, it's like, it's not just the cost of the tree initially, but perhaps like a consideration for how much value that tree is adding, like in terms of like mitigating like erosion or like stormwater, like how much water it's sucking in that aren't then going to the processing plants. Like I remember seeing an analysis a while ago of like this is how much like a tree adds in terms of value. Like in the summer, it cools the sidewalk. Like there's a lot of things that we don't typically put price tags on, but you know we could if we wanted to. It would just take a lot of detail-oriented work to kind of quantify them. But I think that 391 is representative of like the replacement cost for a small tree, but not necessarily the value that that tree is adding once it grows to maturity. And so perhaps like a consideration for what is being lost, like by not planting that tree, not just that year, but for all the subsequent years.
Yeah, because under current policy with the 1-for-1 replacement doesn't take into account the diameter of the tree that's being removed.
Yeah, and if a street
the
tree
benefit of that particular mature tree, yeah.
and if that street tree is being removed, like it costs a lot of money to remove a tree. It costs thousands of dollars probably. And so like 391 maybe isn't that much of a deterrent, like because it's a small percentage of that total cost of like maybe 2,000 or 3,000 potentially to remove that tree, especially if they're having to like do stump grinding and work around sidewalks.
Yeah, I agree. There's definitely lifetime and ecosystem benefit costs that aren't necessarily calculated into a tree planting. And then, and even so, when you are looking at just that tree alone and that snapshot of time, the tree is not doing a whole lot for your ecosystem benefit because it's small relative to a like large mature tree. So the goal would be to encourage mature tree retention by placing value on them by saying your mature tree is doing this much work to capture stormwater, to clean your air, to cool your sidewalk or your property, and all that is not necessarily tangible, but there are ways to capture that through.
Yeah. And also, Sam, you mentioned in the last meeting or meeting before that how what we have on the books right now for what constitutes a sidewalk mobility hazard is not what any certified arborist would take into account if they were looking at a tree under the ISA protocol for hazard assessment.
Correct.
Understood. So yeah, and I think that needs to be pointed out as well, because our focus right now has been how do we minimize costs for the budding landowner? You know, it's very much geared that way right now, and it's going to take a long time, I think, to turn that toward the tree. So, yeah. But yeah, okay, good points.
Sorry to make your life hard, Pete.
Oh, good. I appreciate having experts that, know the situation.
Well, if it's any consolation, I'm really, like you mentioned that coming out of the retreat, that canopy cover appeared to be a focus for the climate action plan. And that is a very good place to start when you go into mature tree protection, because if you don't know what you have, you can't quantify it and you can't protect it. So, or you can't do anything for it. Just like any other infrastructure type in the city, if you don't know what road you have, if you don't know what underground utility you have, you can't do anything to manage it. So I think we should kind of view our trees as similar value utility. That, you know, if that is the language the city needs,
Right, right.
measuring the canopy is the way to go about it.
Yeah.
And it's a good start.
Yeah. Right. And there's that's the way I kind of frame it too, because it's language that people who deal with utility and infrastructure assets in the public right of way understand and say this is no different except that it's green and it's alive, and it's dynamic, and you have to manage for that, and that's why it's a science, like anything else.
Right. And roads cause headaches all the time, so why not trees?
Right. Yeah. And yeah, pipes, roads, earthquakes. Yeah. Okay. Good. Cool. All right. Good momentum here. So I appreciate that. And I've hit the save button. Yes.
Yes.
All right. So next, we wanted to talk about the website thing. So let me pull it up. And where did I?
I just have to go check on my kid real quick.
Okay, yeah. orcity.org, boards and committees, and where are we? Oh, that's weird. NRC. Okay. Clear that out. Clear that out. Oh. Share my screen. Oh, that's strange. Two. You see a website? Oh, not yet.
Don't see anything, just a regular Zoom.
I've got a Zoom setting that says I have to fix. Cisco WebEx meetings. Oh, there we go. Oh, don't do that. Okay, one moment. Oh, okay. Yeah, Zoom is not playing nice with me. Sorry. Let me just read the thing.
It's mostly the part where it says training. So it's about halfway through that lip on, it's composed of 7 members.
There's a section that says composition. The NRC is composed of 7 members appointed for 3-year terms, a staggered terms, initial members are, so there's a bunch of stuff about the terms. And then training in urban ecology, watershed management, arboriculture, landscape architecture, or urban forestry is specifically desired for this position. Okay. So
and it gets to the end, it says persons with an interest or knowledge in natural resource issues are encouraged to apply, but that's way at the end. And it doesn't sound like, it sounds to me when I read this as they want you to have training in urban ecology, watershed management, arboriculture, landscape architecture, or urban forestry. And I just think that's
86. We can get it out there if you want.
Well, I don't mind it being in their training, or I think just having just life experience with natural resources or wanting to protect natural resources. I'd like to add something more general to that.
Sure. All right.
The training in this is great, but we also really encourage people who have experience with natural resources or habitat restoration or native plants, or
we can totally
or even gardening. Just
gardening.
Generally, lots of people can garden, and that's a very loose, broad term that people can garden on a variety of scales.
People who love Oregon City's natural resources, want to help protect Oregon City's natural resources would even be good.
Yeah. Well, the way this is set up as a paragraph is a bit dull. I mean, you could say, do you have an interest? Question mark.
Right.
You know, do you like to garden? Do you do this? Then you're
Right.
you're the
Right.
kind of person we
Do you have been trained in this, or do you have experience with this, or do you just love to garden or hike through the woods or something?
Exactly.
I mean,
Right. So we can totally change the format. We can make it, a lot more approachable and interactive, but yeah, engaging.
inviting.
Inviting.
It's not very inviting right now.
Somebody can be like, yeah,
Sounds like we're a bunch of snobs.
Do you have trees?
Yeah.
Do you fish? Anything? Okay. Do you want to write up stuff? And
Okay. I will write something up and, to make it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be good because there's room here.
Write something for me and send it to me, and I'll.
I can. I'll ask Jude to. He's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's good with this stuff. He's revamped so many parts of our website already, and he's just like, "How do you like this?" I'm like, "Wow, that looks great."
Yeah. Yeah. Just tell him to write it. Tell him that we want it to be more inviting, and we don't just want people who are trained. I mean, that's great, but we also really want people who just want to help protect Oregon City's natural resources. Like they like to go hiking or walking through neighborhoods and looking at the trees, or they like to garden, or.
Yeah, and then let them know what the time commitment is, kind of thing, so that but don't scare them off.
Right.
Yeah.
I think like the entire job market right now, anytime you're trying to get help, it's a pitch now. Like we have to make a pitch to come work with us and to come help us. I almost think the language can be something like something that everybody will universally say yes to. Like, do you care about trees? Do you care about the environment? Like invoke some kind of emotional response before we start to say like, well, you have to be this, this, and this.
Yeah, like a call to action as opposed to like a list of requirements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Because honestly, like, I mean,
it looks great on your resume.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, as much as it would be great to have like another arborist or someone with like tons of education in this area, it'd also be great to have someone in our community who like just cares how their street looks.
Right.
And is willing to come from that perspective.
Dee was on it for years, and Dee got on it because she loves trees and she cares about trees and big trees, and she was the impetus to get the heritage tree code changed. Like, okay, I'll meet you at the Midway. Let's rewrite this code.
Yeah,
I wrote it as code.
I don't know if this is a popular opinion, but it may make sense from a like full community involvement standpoint to look for somebody who might have different opinions than us. I think generally as a group, we kind of have some similar opinions. And if, I don't know how we would go about doing this, but if we could find like someone in kind of that developer world or real estate investor world who would respectfully bring, potentially a different perspective on how to look at some of these questions that we're asking, that might have some benefit for our community.
Yeah, you're right, because we end up, whenever it's like something related to natural resources, whether it's tweaking the stormwater standards or the street tree list or something that is going to end up in the development code somewhere, it's good to have that perspective, what works and what doesn't. So I feel that way. I like a nice broad perspective, but
I do too.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
I also like the idea of maybe having more folks in the planning world. Like I know, Pete, you're excellent resource, of course, but you're also a liaison to the city. And so, yeah, having more perspectives because we have limitations of knowledge for like where does the stormwater permit, I don't know if we could specifically have someone like that on the board or on the committee, but like having these kind of not necessarily strictly natural resource expertise, but like planning and development adjacent would be good. But one caveat to that is I'm concerned that if we, recruit someone from the developer side, that they might have potential conflict of interest
Mhm.
in, kind of swaying the NRC recommendations in their favor in order to promote their own business, which we would, anybody on the NRC would have if they were, a private entity as well within the
Yeah.
city. So,
Yeah, and I would really hate to see some kind of acrimony come out of something like that. I totally understand that point. It's definitely much more of a concern on the planning commission, because they are making the final decision on land use applications, and they have to actually declare their financial and pecuniary interest before they get on the PC and that kind of thing. Record it with the state. Yeah, I agree.
Me too. Yeah. Hopefully, we don't have enough teeth to be able to recruit anybody that might be in that position.
I think we'd be able to see it ahead of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if we were like making a close vote on a stormwater standard, it's like we're part of a big. I'm just a planner in a department. And there's so many people who have input on the development of the Oregon City, as we know it. It's not just me, but there's the neighborhood associations, there's the CIC, the city commission, the planning commission, all the residents that live nearby, they all have a stake. So,
yeah. But sorry if I missed a couple minutes because I had to step away, but correct me if I'm wrong, Pete, that however we go about recruiting for this position, we will, as a body, be deciding together like who's a good fit. So I certainly agree with Sam that we don't want to recruit somebody who's going to be lobbying for something that's not congruent with the goals of the city or this body. But hopefully, like you said, we would see that coming.
Yeah. And I also think, when we interview candidates for the positions, they need to be forthcoming about why they're interested in the position, or the committee as a whole. Yeah. All right.
Do you want to have Jared just write something up? Tell him what we talked about and have him write it up?
Yeah. Well, I'd love to hear.
Do you want me to write something up and I'll send it to you and you can send it out to these guys and then we can tweak it?
Sure.
I like Brian's idea of, enticing people.
Is it also possible, I never see the city post on Oregon City Chit Chat, but the group has 33,000 people. It's almost, it's so many residents. Can we just post it there? Are you interested in being more involved kind of thing? Is that?
I can post it there. I mean, I'm on Oregon City Chit Chat.
Yeah, I mean, I am too. I just think, why does this, can we use that as a way to reach people? Okay.
Yes.
As citizens, right? And just say, we live in this city and this is a group and we can post on it.
Yeah. You totally can do that. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah. I thought about it at one point. I thought, well, it sounds kind of presumptuous right now. Let's change it and then maybe I'll post it on there.
Yeah, once you tweak the language. And then did you get an application from I'm sorry, I stepped away for a couple of minutes. Did you get any applications?
You mean for the committee?
Yeah.
I haven't been notified by the city recorder of that.
Okay, because I spoke with somebody who said that she recently applied.
Okay.
Her name is yes, and so I just if your application has not been received, then maybe there's I don't know, a technical issue or.
Okay, so the website, the network disruption is only now becoming resolved after 5 weeks.
Yes.
When that was going on, so.
Yeah, I can't remember.
We are getting stuff in our inbox and stuff, so.
Okay.
That
this was February 20th.
But if it was submitted,
so that would have been.
If it was submitted through the website, it might not have made it.
Okay, I'll ask. It's just someone I met, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm interested in doing." And I was like, "Okay, just apply." There's all these, all these, all these positions open. Okay.
And they're supposed to
and then
this website, so maybe it screwed it up.
Yeah. Yeah, that could be because everything with the web was screwy.
And then if someone were to
Oh, Emily, we lost you.
actually, oh, darn it. Can you hear me?
Here you
Now
go.
I can, yeah.
Sorry, my internet is so bad, so I'm not on video. Okay.
We lost you again.
Oh, darn. Okay, I'm just going to stop. I'll ask next time.
Okay.
I'll write something up and then I'll send it out and Brian can make it sound more enticing. He's got good ideas.
All right. That sounds good.
So the only thing we have left is the approval of all those minutes and minutes and minutes and minutes. And I looked through them and I was at most of them. And I vaguely recalled that actually I go, okay, I remember talking about that. And the only one thing I wanted to say was March 11th, 2020, that meeting, we had a guy who came and talked about light pollution and the impact on birds and insects. And I would love to get him or somebody like that back again because that was
Yes.
a huge
When
problem.
was that?
Oh, there's a, I know Adam was trying to do something with that previously because he wanted to be an entomologist at one point and just getting different lights like for street lamps.
And this
And I
guy
was
had data. He had data on what spectrum did the most damage.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, and so it was the March 11th, 2020 meeting. I think it had his name down.
Yeah. All right.
Where he came from. But if we could, so I don't know if he's still doing it or not, but I would love to propose something like that for future meetings. But I also think we should approve all the minutes.
It's good. Reading minutes can lead to good things.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that was a great presentation. We need that against the light's horrible, and it's getting worse around here.
Yeah, I know. It was
Yeah.
like-
Lights and they shine up, and I can't even see the Big Dipper anymore.
yeah, it was like a year after we had all the PGE lights changed out to LEDs, and
It's horrible. I
that
can't see
they're in
anything.
the bright white spectrum.
Yeah, and it's so bright. I could sit in my yard and read a book.
Yeah.
And then the old high school, the outside of the buildings, they have these lights. Literally, when my dog poops 3 a.m. across the street from there, I don't have to use a flashlight to pick it up. I mean, if
Oh gosh.
I would be complaining because
That is like a true test of brightness.
it really is. And I can't do that under a lot of the street
The
lights.
stakes are so high.
They didn't come in for site plan review when they did that.
Yeah, and they're horrible. That's horrible.
We should have had a photometric plan we didn't sign off on.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we should get somebody in and then start bugging the city to do something with.
Well, yeah, and plus the current lighting code hasn't come up to speed with the new technology.
Yeah.
We talk about
Oh, that's actually great.
right.
Because then all the lights are old, they're inefficient, and then when they're replaced with efficient lights, we can like particularly have better like ones that don't cause light pollution and are efficient.
Yeah, and the thing is,
But the LEDs are actually really bad. The bright white LEDs are the absolute worst things for birds and insects. And the stuff he was talking about was just appalling.
because our current code talks about foot candles and 0.5 foot candle at the property line, which is kind of an old measurement. You know, when you look at the industry, they talk about lumens, and
Yeah.
we don't talk about lumens.
Yeah.
So I think we need to update that
Yeah.
next time we get the lighting code done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. But I moved to approve all the minutes.
Second. Even though I wasn't there.
All right.
Okay.
Keep coming. Thumbs up.
Thumbs up. We're all approving the minutes.
The city recorder's office is going to be ecstatic.
Good.
Cool. All right.
And I figured if the 90% plus that I was there seemed correct, that the few that I wasn't there at were probably correct too.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, that's 2 sets of minutes down. I think there may be some more on the way. But I'll let you know.
Does anybody have are there communications?
Well, we talked about the street tree code update, so that was going to be what I was going to put in communications. So
Okay.
I don't have
Future
anything
agenda
else.
item besides the lights, light pollution.
Next April meeting. Not really sure if John's going to be available for that because we were going to I think we were going to invite either Eric Hand or John to the April meeting to talk about the stormwater maintenance thing.
Would it, if one of them can't make it, I think that's Marcus, I think in Public Works, who does a lot of the stormwater.
Oh, Marcus, water.
And he was on the tour.
Yeah, he was
seemed
on
very
tour.
interested.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He does a lot of that.
It's weird that he hasn't been more involved because I think he's more involved in like the lab and the testing and the water quality that comes out of the treatment.
Oh, okay.
All of that. But there's clearly a connection there.
Yeah.
Otherwise he wouldn't have been on the tour. So yeah, Marcus.
He had mentioned that like he was really interested in kind of just like being more involved in community things, and like he was newer to Oregon City and was kind of just looking to like
He
be involved.
By his new house that he was buying. Well, it wasn't new.
Yeah.
He's like pointing out his house. I just bought that house.
Cool. All right. I can't recall his last name, but
I can't either.
I'll look him up.
Yeah, I can't remember his last name.
So by April, hopefully we'll have a little clearer idea of where City Commission's going with the budget.
Right.
And an update on that. And
I'm sorry, I'm looking at my calendar. I think I have the budget meeting. Is it like the 27th? And our meeting would be our meeting would be the 12th. So I don't know.
it's not too late. You're right. It's not.
So I think maybe the May. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we probably won't be talking about that until after that budget meeting. Okay. All right. Well, Nancy and Sam, what I'll do is I'll reach out to you guys 2 weeks before the next meeting so we can get a clear idea of what the agenda is going to be.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right.
And I will write up a description of the position, the thing we want, and send that out. And Brian can make it sound better, and then.
Yeah.
Sorry, there was one other thing, and it's just an update on the peace tree ceremony preparations for April 29th. We have 4 committed speakers, including Samantha. Thank you.
Wow. What's that?
What's the baby do?
14th. So I was just going to mention, I can't guarantee I'll be there on the April NRC date.
Yeah. Obviously.
But I will strive to make it to the Peace Tree dedication event. So my doctors won't let me hang out pregnant past the 14th. So so the baby's going to be there at the Peace Tree event, barring any unforeseen circumstances. But
if you cannot make it, send me what you were going to say, and I'll go up and pretend I'm you.
That's fine. No, I'm happy to send notes in advance.
Yeah.
But I do want to mention on any press release for the Peace Tree dedication event that the trees that we're planting are legacies of survivor trees from Hiroshima. So they're not necessarily symbols of peace independently, like as a species. Does that make sense? Like these trees are special because they're legacies of survivor trees. That's like the important component of all these trees. And I don't know if that was conveyed specifically in any of the outreach materials, but I do want to highlight that since that's the relevance of of all the peace trees that we've been planting in Oregon. We are lucky to have this one.
Okay.
Sorry, Sam. Are you doing April or May?
April, next
April.
month.
Oh my gosh! Wow, that's soon. Okay, I just wanted. I was confused when you said baby will be at the ceremony, but okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. One way or another, baby's gonna be there.
At the ceremony, out of you.
Yes.
Okay.
Hopefully by then, because I'm getting tired of pregnancy.
All right. Well, yes, we're pulling for you, Sam. Well, thank you very much. Mayor McGriff's also going to talk. ODF staff. I'm totally blanking on his name, but he's coming too. Yeah, I'll be sure to when we do the next press release, which will be coming out soon. Be sure to make sure that is properly worded.
Right. I had a meeting planned with Molly, but she got bogged down with the mountain of emails that finally funneled through once the network came back online. So it got bumped.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, you just call her anytime.
Okay, great. I'll tell her you said that.
Yep. Yep. All right. Anything else?
Oh, quick announcement about there's a spring resource fair hosted by Oregon City Parks and Rec on the 11th, this Saturday from 10 to 1. There's going to be a lot of resources available. Xerxes is giving a talk about bee and butterfly conservation in your own backyard, and there's going to be I think a master recyclers table. Soul Flags is coming. There's a lot of environmental if anyone is interested. Unfortunately, it conflicts with the Greater Oregon City Watershed Council event at Singer Creek, which I think is from 9 to 1 maybe, or 10 to 2, something like that. But yeah, it's happening also. It's at the Pioneer Center.
Okay.
And it's family friendly. I think they're bringing the playground equipment for really little kids, and there's going to be some kind of scavenger hunt and crafts potentially.
Awesome. Thanks.
That's good.
All right. Well, have a great month, everybody. And we might even get some more snow before we see each other again.
I hope not. But of course, I didn't get much to begin with, but it's getting old. I want spring.
All right.
Okay.
Take care. Great session.
See you guys.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Record.